Bite Your Fingertips Chapter 45 to Chapter 49. Chiyu could faintly hear the noises around him. Some people were cheering and saying something loudly. There was also the sound of rolling wheels rolling over sand and stones. Everything seemed to be very close to him, but it also seemed very far away. His eyelids were too heavy and he couldn't open them. His limbs had lost all strength. If it weren't for someone supporting him, he probably wouldn't even be able to stand properly. A familiar female voice was calling for a doctor. Chiyu's brain was like a rusty clock. It took him more than 10 seconds to realize that the person speaking was his sister. She was usually swift and decisive, but now she was flustered and even sounded like she was about to cry. Xiaoyu, it's okay. You're out. The doctor will be here soon. Don't be afraid. It's okay, Chiyu's lips moved. He instinctively wanted to reply, Sister, don't cry. If you cry too much, your eyes will swell and you won't look good. But when he discerned the meaning of this sentence, the string in Chiyu's heart that had been stretched taut suddenly trembled. He unconsciously clutched Lushir's clothes. Lushir. Lushir, don't go to the doctor. He thought that his voice was very loud, but in fact, it was as soft as a mosquito's. Sensing Chiyu's subtle movements, Lushir held the uneasy person in her arms and asked him, what? Chiyu's eyes were closed as he leaned on Lushir's shoulder. Half of his face was exposed. His lips were completely pale, but his brows were furrowed. Chushi wiped her tears with her fingers and asked anxiously, Xiaoyu, what do you want to say? Chiyu's lips moved again, but he still couldn't make a sound. Lushir lowered her eyes and suddenly said, Chiyu said that he doesn't want to go to the hospital. After she said this, Chushi saw Chiyu's furrowed brows loosen. She quickly comforted him. Okay, we'll listen to you. If you don't want to go, we won't go to the hospital. Chiyu felt as if his consciousness was floating on the surface of the water, floating and sinking, half confused and half awake. He leaned on Lushir's shoulder and gently rubbed against it. There was someone who knew his secret and understood his fear. He would protect him. The experts and leaders of the rescue team came over. Chushi and Chuxian went to thank them. Lushir sensed that Chuyu's lips instinctively brushed against his collar. He whispered, Be good. There are too many people here. Let's wait for a while. I'll give it to you soon. When Chiyu regained consciousness, he subconsciously moved his fingers. The place she was lying on was soft and warm. As far as she could see, there were light blue curtains and white chandeliers. It was very familiar. He heard the family doctor call Chuxian and Chushi out. Then, with a click, the door was closed, and the room became quiet. Lushir walked to the bedside. He leaned over and whispered, You're awake? All of a sudden, Chuyu's arms softly wrapped around her neck. Lushir didn't break free. Following the force, she brought her shoulder to Chuyu's mouth. Chiyu bit his collar with his teeth, lifted it a little, and licked his cold skin with the tip of his tongue. Lushir loosened her grip and let Chiyu do what he wanted. Her voice was very soft. Are you very hungry? Yes. Chiyu's nasal voice was sticky and pitiful. I'm so hungry. As he spoke, he licked Lushir's shoulder weakly. Lushir was a little tickled by his kitten-like actions. He said hoarsely, You don't even have the strength to bite me? Chiyu really didn't have any strength. He opened his mouth and tried to bite, but there was no blood. Releasing his teeth, Chiyu looked at Lushir. His light-colored eyes were wet. You're so pitiful. Lushir got up and rolled up her sleeves, revealing her pale wrist. She brought her wrist to Chiyu's lips. Try again? If you still can't bite it open, I'll cut it open and let you drink it. Chiyu didn't hear the second half of the sentence clearly. He held Lushir's wrist in his mouth and ground it with his teeth for a long time. Finally, he opened a small hole. Fresh blood flowed out. He sucked it and swallowed it down his throat. When he tasted the blood again, Chiyu couldn't even breathe properly. His eyes inexplicably felt a little sore. Lushir sat by the bed. She fed Chiyu with one hand and gently stroked his soft hair with the other. Why are you crying? She moved her finger down and stopped at the corner of Chiyu's eyes. With a curl, her fingertip became wet. She put her fingertip to her mouth and tasted the salty taste. Lucier asked, were you very scared when you were in there? Chiyu nodded gently. In the beginning, he was afraid of ghosts. Later, when he was thirsty for blood and felt too uncomfortable, he didn't have the energy to be afraid of ghosts anymore. He started to worry about whether he would die and become a ghost. Lucier asked again, were you very hungry? Chiyu nodded again. Lucier moved closer until he could see his own reflection in Chiyu's eyes. He then said, did you still miss me? That's why you're always crying when you see me. Chiyu made a very low sound of acknowledgement. Lucier heard it clearly. He chuckled happily. His fingertip traced the shape of Chiyu's eyes. Suddenly, he asked, Xianxua's palm is injured and bleeding. The cave is filled with the smell of his blood. Were you very hungry and didn't drink his blood? Chiyu let go of Lucier's wrist. After drinking the blood, he spoke with a little more strength. Yes, I promised you. Chiyu knew that Lucier was almost paranoid about him only drinking his blood. Subconsciously, he didn't want to upset Lucier. Chiyu. What? Don't do this next time. Lucier lowered his thin eyelids to hide the emotions in his eyes. As if he was talking about something unimportant, his tone was calm. What's more important than whether you drank other people's blood is that you have to survive. Do you understand? Chiyu's eyelashes fluttered slightly. He vaguely felt that something was different. When Feng Ziki, Meng Ge, and Li Hua went to visit Xianxia, they cried first. When they arrived at Chiyu's room, they cried again. It was the first time in the world of teenagers that they were so close to death. Feng Ziki looked at Chiyu's bandaged ankle. His eyes were red and he looked like he was about to cry again. Campus Belle, will your ankle recover? Will you be able to walk in the future? Although it felt good to be cared for, Chiyu couldn't help but grumble, study committee member, can you not look at my ankle as if it's broken? It's true. It's just a dislocation and a sprain. Not even the bones are hurt. It'll recover in the future and I'll be able to walk in the future. Feng Ziki nodded. Really? Chiyu nodded frantically. Really? My ankle really isn't broken. When it recovers, I'll jump in front of you and show you. After Chiyu and Feng Ziki finished chatting, Li Hua pointed outside the window. We'll have to go back to school with Olji in a while. Campus Belle, when you're better, hurry back too. Chiyu knew that Li Hua and the others had shamelessly stayed on the mountain to wait for news of him and Zhang Yueshan. Now that they had been rescued, Li Hua and the others had no reason to stay on the mountain. Chiyu nodded. Okay, you guys go back first. I'll probably be back in 2 days. Manga was a 1.88-meter tall man. He cried harder than anyone else and was still choking with sobs. Chiyu was touched and wanted to laugh. Mango, remember to wash your face later. Otherwise, when you go back to school and that little fairy you're chasing sees you, your reputation will be ruined. After Li Hua and Manga dragged Feng Ziki out of the room, Chushi opened the door and came in not long after. She had tidied up her appearance and looked more energetic. She held her phone and smiled. Your class president is in the room treating the wound on his hand. It's a little infected. The doctor used a lot of force and made him cry out in pain. She stared at Chiyu lying on the bed for a while and finally relaxed. Fortunately, you're okay. Chiyu pretended to be obedient. Sis, I'm lucky. It's just a landslide. Look, I'm not hurt at all. Don't worry. Chushi glared at Chiyu. It's just a landslide? You make it sound so easy. After saying that, she reached out to pinch Chiyu's face. Chiyu's skin was fair and delicate. A light red mark was left behind when she pinched. He squealed, you can pinch other places, but don't pinch my face. My face can't take this kind of torture. Let go, I'm going to be disfigured. Chushi was amused and laughed. Why are you still acting like you were when you were a teenager? Can't anyone touch your face? Chiyu rubbed his cheeks and retorted, then why haven't you changed your bad habit of pinching my face from your teens to your 20s? Chiyu pulled the blanket over himself and sat back down. He became more serious. Sis, if you and brother have something to do, you can leave first. My hands and feet are fine. I can get up and jump around now. You don't have to worry. Chushi shook her head. No, how can we leave now? Why can't we? Chiyu reached out to push her. I've been trapped inside for almost 60 hours, and you've also been delayed for 60 hours. Aren't you going to approve the documents? Are you going to hold the meeting? Or is the Chu family going to close down? Little rascal, who says that their family is going to close down? Don't you want your pocket money anymore? Chiyu grinned and said, do you think I don't know how busy you and brother are? Pocket money is definitely needed, so hurry up and work hard to earn pocket money for brother. TSK, earning pocket money? This task is quite heavy. Chushi's work had indeed been backlogged for a few days. Since she hadn't found Chuyu, she wasn't in the mood to work at all. She touched Chuyu's forehead and asked softly, is it really okay? Yes, you really don't have to worry. I remember that when you and brother were my age, you were already in the board of directors and sat in on the meetings. I like to play, so I can't help much, but I can't take up your time either. She smiled at Chushi. Chiyu urged her, hurry up and take brother with you. Let's go. The sound of the car engine came from downstairs. It got farther and farther away and gradually disappeared. Chiyu leaned against the pillow and looked out the window. He felt that he was really too sensible. When he turned his head and saw Lucia sitting by the bed and using her phone to do some practice questions, Chiyu instantly lost his sense of propriety. He moved over and used his head to cover the phone screen. He looked up at Lucia and asked, is the phone prettier than me? Lucia threw the phone away and asked him, are you bored? Chiyu nodded. I'm bored. What do you want to do? Chiyu didn't feel guilty about disturbing Lucia's studies at all. He suggested excitedly, let's read comics together. I brought a lot of comics up this time. They're detective series. They're really good. Okay, I'll accompany you. Lucia also sat on the bed. He had just taken a shower, so there was a faint smell of shower gel on him. The wound on the back of his hand had been washed by water and was pale. Following Chuyu's suggestion, Lucia picked a comic book from the stack. The two of them leaned against the headboard and read it together. Chiyu was very focused and engrossed in reading the comic. This friend B must be the murderer. He looks guilty and can't even tell where he was at around 5:30. There's a problem. Lucia, what do you think? Lucia said, the person who came with him is the murderer. This person is guilty because when he went to the reading room at 5:30, he accidentally saw his friend leave the room and wasn't in the room. He didn't dare to say anything. Chiyu flipped through a few more pages and realized that it was exactly as Lucia had said. He excitedly switched to another comic. Halfway through, Chiyu asked again, what about this case? Who's the murderer? I think it's the sister in the red dress. When he flipped to the next 2 pages, Chiyu's expression collapsed. Ah, why is the sister in the red dress dead? She's definitely not the murderer. Lucia saw the disappointment in his eyes and couldn't help but say, you're half right. You've improved. The murderer is her twin sister. On the top right corner of page 4 and the bottom left corner of page 12, the direction of the tattoo on the wrist of the woman in the red dress is different. They're 2 different people. Chiyu flipped to the last page and realized that it was exactly as Lucia had said. Damn, he really felt what it meant to be crushed by IQ and logic. He asked Lucia, do you find detective stories particularly boring? Yes, I do. Chiyu threw the comic book away. After a moment of silence, he said, actually, I just don't dare to sleep. I know. Lucia suggested a solution. Hug? Chiyu said in disdain, hugging here and there will make you nag. Although he said that, his body still leaned into Lucia's embrace. Chiyu took a deep breath. Only now did he feel that he didn't die in the cave and that he had been rescued. Don't turn off the light. Okay, I won't turn it off. Chiyu tried to close his eyes. After a while, he opened one eye and looked at Lucia. Lucia patted his waist and asked, can't sleep? I want to ask a question. I'll sleep after I ask. Ask. If. Chiyu didn't dare to look into Lucia's eyes. He stared at the bedside lamp and hesitated. I'm saying if. If I didn't make it out this time and really died in there, would you let other little monsters suck your blood? He didn't notice that when he said the word die, Lu Shi's fingertips trembled slightly, but she quickly held them tightly in her palm. Chuyu. Yes? I wouldn't. Chuyu turned over and knelt on the bed. He stubbornly stared into Lu Shi's eyes and asked, wouldn't what? Lu Shi's lips curled up. As Chuyu wished, she finished her sentence. I wouldn't let a second little monster suck my blood. Chuyu had nightmares the night before. When he got into the car and went down the mountain, he was so sleepy that he dozed off. He forced himself to stay awake and told Lu Shi about his dream last night. It was in that cave. I dreamt that I couldn't get out, and the class monitor wasn't there either. Then, with a sizzling sound from the black fog, a lot of ghosts jumped out from nowhere. Lu Shi, can you imagine? They started having fun in the cave as if there was no one around. Ghosts dancing and disco is not nice at all. There was also a drummer, a DJ, and a DJ with a broken neck and broken hands. The scene was too painful to watch. So it's not that you're not sleepy, but that you don't dare to sleep? After being exposed by Lu Shi, Chuyu was not angry. He hummed and nodded. I think there are some sequelae. I don't know if the class monitor has any. We can talk about it when we get to school. What sequelae? Chuyu summarized. First, it's the sequelae of the ghost story. I really won't participate in any ghost story conventions anymore. Second, I'm afraid of the dark. Third, I had a hallucination in the cave. I kept feeling that someone was coming to save me, but when I woke up, I realized that it was fake. Now, I'm a little. Chuyu did not know how to describe it. It's just that I keep feeling that I'm dreaming now, and that I'm still trapped in the cave at night. That's the real thing. I might not be able to distinguish between reality and dreams. He leaned his head against the car window dejectedly and lowered his voice. My brother contacted a psychiatrist for me, but I don't want to see him. Don't they say that psychiatrists are very good at hypnosis? What if I accidentally tell him my little secret? The psychiatrist will probably think that I'm crazy and delusional. When he first developed the problem of sucking blood, Chuyu had also flipped through psychology books. There were a few psychological explanations for his behavior of sucking blood. Then don't go. Lu Shi reached out and grabbed Chiyu's neck. He pulled him over and pressed him against his shoulder. Go to sleep. No, I'm not going to sleep. What if I dream of ugly ghosts in the cave? No, I won't dream of it. Perhaps it was Lu Shi's hypnosis that worked, but when Chuyu woke up, he realized that he did not have any dreams. When the car stopped at the entrance of the dormitory building, Chuyu hopped out of the car with one leg and was surrounded by people. Manga patted Chiyu's shoulder. You're finally back. Without you in school, it feels like there's something missing. Chuyu laughed out loud. Manga, where did you go to learn 180 different ways to flatter someone? Manga scratched the back of his head. I've always known how to do that. He coughed twice. But, isn't my flattery a little more powerful now? I always feel like I'm not good at chatting with girls. According to the advice online, you have to practice more in your daily life. Chuyu felt that he had indeed made progress. He was also concerned about Mengji's love life. You haven't won her yet? How can it be so fast? She told me to study hard and not be distracted. I've studied hard, but I still miss her. I really can't control my feelings. Xianxia was too lazy to listen to Mengji's conflicted thoughts. He showed his bandaged hand to Chuyu. Do I look like a ninja? Handsome, right? Chuyu looked at Xianxia's hand and then looked at his foot. He felt that Xianxia's hand was indeed many times better looking than his. How infuriating. When they went upstairs, Manga and Li Hua carried Chuyu up the stairs. They did not give him a chance to touch the ground at all. When they arrived at the dormitory, Chuyu rummaged through a pile of snacks. The group of people quarreled until it was dark before they left. At night, Zhu Zhifei also came to knock on the door. When he saw Chuyu, his eyes immediately turned red. Chuyu pointed at his foot. Other than spraining my ankle, I don't have any other injuries. I'm also fine. Zhu Zhifei sniffed and could not help but laugh. I haven't even asked yet. Why did you answer first? Didn't I say that because I have experience? Chiyu's eyes curved into crescents as he smiled. He pretended to sigh. Ah, good will be rewarded. I guess I'm too kind. Even God can't bear to accept me. Zhu Zhifei laughed. There's another saying. Fortune favors fools. Chiyu threw the tissue paper in his hand at him and scolded jokingly. Is there anyone who visits a patient like you? Didn't I set a precedent? Zhu Zhifei threw the tissue paper back and looked inside. Where's Lu Ge? Lu Ge went to eat. Help me pack some food while you're at it. Okay then. I'll go back first. I've been going to cram school all day. I'm so busy that I haven't even finished my homework. Zhu Zhifei was relieved after he confirmed that Chiyu was fine. He even closed the door carefully before he left. After everyone left, Chiyu was the only one left in the dormitory. He sat on the carpet in a daze for a while. Then he propped himself up, hopped on one leg, and turned on all the lights. When the entire dormitory was lit up, he thought for a while and found an unused flashlight from the glove compartment. He stuffed it into his school bag. Chiyu carried his school bag and put it aside. Then he sat down again and randomly found a comic book to read. In the evening, Chiyu responded to everyone's condolences in the class group chat. He called Chu Shi and Chu Xian to report the situation. He also listened to his Aunt Lan nagging for half an hour on the phone. Chiyu looked at the time and realized that it was almost midnight. He lay on the bed and prepared to sleep. However, after closing his eyes for a while, he sat up again, took his school bag, and placed it beside his pillow. After falling asleep in a daze, Chiyu suddenly felt the bed shake violently. Sand and stones kept falling from the ceiling. He opened his eyes abruptly and instinctively jumped out of bed. However, he quickly realized that it was an illusion. Under the bright light, Chiyu leaned against the white wall and swallowed his saliva. After looking around, Chiyu was still breathing rapidly. His heart was beating faster and faster. He couldn't calm down no matter how hard he tried. Chiyu grabbed his new phone and instinctively called Lu Shi. He didn't even realize that his voice was filled with fear. Lu Shi, can you come over? In less than 2 minutes, the door was unlocked. Lu Shi opened the door and came in with the key. Chiyu stood against the wall and stared at him without moving an inch. Lu Shi didn't ask why all the lights were on in the middle of the night. He also didn't ask why he put his school bag beside his pillow and why he wasn't lying on the bed. Instead, he was standing barefoot against the wall. He just walked over and lay down on Chiyu's bed. Come on, it's time to sleep. The moment he saw Lu Shi, his heartbeat slowly calmed down. Chiyu composed himself, jumped over on one leg, and lay down on the bed again. Chiyu didn't know what to say. Did you sleep just now? No, I took a shower. I'm doing practice questions. Practice questions? Which subject? Physics. Oh. After Chiyu asked, he asked again, are the questions difficult? Not difficult. Chiyu still wanted to ask, but Lu Shi raised his hand and covered his eyes. It's time to sleep. Okay. Chiyu stumbled and whispered, your hand, can you not take it away first? Okay. When he heard Lu Shi agree, Chiyu became nervous again. Do you think I'm so troublesome? He was a little afraid that Lu Shi would find him annoying. No. At this moment, the phone vibrated. Chiyu propped himself up with his hand and looked over. The phone is on the desk. It should be yours. Do you want me to get it for you? Lie down. Lu Shi got up and stepped barefoot on the carpet. He picked up the phone but didn't answer it. Chiyu hugged the blanket and looked at Lu Shi's tense face. He couldn't help but say, if you don't want to answer it, don't answer it. Or I can answer it for you. Just say that you're not here. How about that? No need. Lu Shi answered the call and put the receiver to his ear. The phone was close and the room was very quiet. Chiyu could vaguely hear a man talking. His tone wasn't very good. He seemed to be blaming Lu Shi for not answering his phone for the past 2 days. Lu Shi was wearing loose black sweatpants and a gray t-shirt. He looked lazy with his left hand in his pocket and his eyes downcast. His expression didn't change at all. Are you listening or not? Lu Shi finally said, I'm listening. There was silence on the other side of the phone for a while. Then, a woman's voice sounded. Lucier saw that Qiyu was listening attentively. The word curiosity was almost written on his face, so he put the call on speaker. Lucier, don't argue with your father. He's very worried about you because you haven't been answering your phone for the past 2 days. Qiyu immediately recognized the voice. It was Lucier's mother who spoke strangely. He hugged the blanket and felt that this logic was very strange. When did Lucier argue with his father? Fang Weiyun continued. Last time, you promised your father that you would definitely come back for Grandpa's birthday banquet. Your father wants to ask you when you'll be home. Lucier's voice was cold. I'll be there on the day of the birthday banquet. Lu Xiaochu's words were full of anger. He wants you to go home? Does he want your life or what? You'll be there directly? You might as well not come back. Lucier's tone was calm. Really? He was obviously waiting for Lu Xiaochu to agree so that he wouldn't be coming back. Lucier. Lu Xiaochu was furious. After being persuaded by Fang Weiyun, he managed to suppress his anger. Come back early. You're my only grandson. The guests are already here. How can you not be there? Got it. Who do you think you're talking to with that tone of yours? You, Xiaochu, don't be angry with the child. Let me talk to him. Fang Weiyun snatched the phone and said in a gentle voice, Lucier, don't argue with your father. You're alone outside. Mommy can't take care of you. You have to take care of yourself, okay? The weather is cold. Wear more clothes. Don't be like Mommy, who can't even get out of bed when she's sick. If you're sick, Mommy's heart will ache, won't it? Qiyu felt that this aunt was starting to say these strange things again. He tried his best to make Lucier look bad. He was a little worried that Lucier would be angry or sad. However, when he carefully observed Lucier's expression, he realized that Lucier was smiling. Her eyes were full of mockery and her tone was casual. Are you done? Fang Weiyun was stunned. Lucier, why are you talking to Mommy like that? Are you in a bad mood? Did something happen to you outside? Qiyu listened and watched from the side. He felt that Lucier was coldly watching a show. Before Lu Xiaochu could say anything, Lucier said, I'm going to sleep. After saying that, she hung up the phone. Lucier threw the phone aside and asked Qiyu, is it interesting? Qiyu nodded. It's quite interesting. The way your mother talks is still strange. Lucier lay down again and pulled the blanket over herself to satisfy Qiyu's curiosity. She's not my mother. Sure enough. Qiyu nodded. Yes, I can tell. When he realized that Lucier didn't want to say more, Qiyu didn't ask further. He secretly imagined a big drama in his mind. At the same time, he felt sorry for Lucier, who had been ostracized by her stepmother. In the end, she had no choice but to run away from home and fend for herself. What are you thinking about? Qiyu said frankly, I'm thinking about you. Lucier raised her hand and covered Qiyu's eyes. Don't think about it. Go to sleep. Qiyu obediently closed his eyes. Qiyu was woken up. He felt a fingertip brushing against his lips. It was soft and itchy. The other party slowly slid along the line of his lips and finally stopped at the position of his lips. Moving down an inch, the fingertip reached directly into his mouth. Then, very gently, but completely irresistibly, the fingertip pried open his teeth. Qiyu suddenly didn't dare to open his eyes. He could feel Lucier's fingertip touching his tongue. It was as if the fingertip was toying with his tongue as it pressed up and down. Then, the fingertip pushed against the soft and slippery inner wall of his mouth. Qiyu recalled the phone call Lucier had received before going to bed. He guessed that Lucier was probably a little emotional right now. He tried his best to relax and didn't struggle. Instead, he loosened the finger that was holding Lucier and let him do whatever he wanted. Until Lucier's other hand pinched his earlobe and whispered in his ear in a hoarse voice, since you're awake, bite down and tell me if you like the taste of my blood. Qiyu was actually very curious about why Lucier was so obsessed with the issue of blood. But since Lucier didn't say anything, he didn't ask. After all, if he were in Lucier's shoes, he wouldn't want someone to forcefully break through the protective cloth covering him, explore his privacy and secrets, and then excitedly tell him, "I know your secret." He felt that the current situation was quite good. When he opened his eyes, Chiyu saw Lucier bending his elbow under the bright light. He was resting his head on his arm and looking at him sideways. The finger stuffed in his mouth was moving slowly and carefully teasing him. His eyes were as deep as the night on the icy plains, without a trace of light. Chiyu felt that Lucier was probably not in a good state right now. This state reminded him of the time when he first met Lucier. He always felt that Lucier seemed to carry an indelible gloom, like dark clouds covering the sun. He wanted to speak, but there was a finger in his mouth. Chiyu hesitated for a moment, then used his tongue to push Lucier's finger out a little. Then, he held the tip of the finger with his teeth and gently bit down. Only a little skin was broken, and blood seeped out. When he tasted the familiar taste, Chiyu restrained his instinct to suck and looked up at Lucier. But Lucier was not satisfied. "Good boy, bite harder." He spoke in a soft and hoarse voice. It tickled his eardrums, and a tingling feeling spread all the way to the depths of his heart. Chiyu felt that his spine was going soft. Sighing in his heart, Chiyu increased his strength a little. After the wound broke open, he no longer restrained his instinct and began to greedily suck the blood. Following Chiyu's actions, fine starlight gradually appeared in Lucier's eyes. He half-propped himself up and took his finger out of Chiyu's mouth. Before the wound healed, a drop of blood seeped out of the wound, flowed down his finger, and dripped onto Chiyu's lips. Chiyu followed the principle of not wasting blood and used the tip of his tongue to lick the drop of blood on his lips into his mouth. Then, he realized that Lucier's eyes seemed to be hiding a little anticipation. All right. Chiyu decided to cooperate. He placed his hand on Lucier's shoulder and pushed her to the side. Then, he moved closer, pulled open Lucier's collar, and bit the side of her neck. A chuckle escaped from Lucier's throat, full of satisfaction and joy. After sucking in a mouthful of blood, Chiyu loosened his teeth and sat up. He wiped the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand. Looking at the smile on Lucier's face, she said helplessly, "Are you happy now?" Looking at Lucier, who was lazily lying on the bed, Chiyu felt that Lucier was more satiated than him. All the hatred and pain in his heart were locked in the box and locked. Lucier narrowed his eyes under the light and stared at Chiyu. "Yes, I'm happy." "That's good." Chiyu yawned, lay down again, and asked, "Shall we sleep then?" "Yes." Chiyu closed his eyes for a second and opened them again. "You won't wake me up again, will you?" "I won't." True to his word, Chiyu slept soundly. When he arrived at the classroom the next day, he was in high spirits. Chiyu was happy that his injured ankle was surrounded by his classmates and received condolences from all parties. Then, he heard Feng Ziki shout from afar, "Campus bell, remember to hand in your homework." Chiyu was shocked. "I've just suffered and I'm seriously injured. Do I still have to hand in my homework?" Feng Ziki nodded. "Yes, there's no room for discussion. Hand it to me when you're done." Thinking of this, Feng Ziki added, "You're the only one in the class who hasn't handed in your homework." Chiyu was immediately discouraged. He turned around and said to the table behind him, "Sigh, the loneliest sentence in the world is that you're the only one in the class who hasn't handed in your homework." As soon as he finished speaking, Chiyu saw Yang Yuping come over and sit in Li Hua's seat. She obviously had something to say. Chiyu could roughly guess what they were going to talk about next. "I'm here to apologize." Chiyu shook his head when he heard this. "It's really nothing. I was the one who went out on a rainy day and encountered a landslide. It's just bad luck. It's not like you caused the accident, so you don't have to apologize. In fact, I should be the one apologizing. Since this happened to the class monitor and your business is probably going to be slow for a while." Yang Yuping wasn't a bashful person. When she heard Chiyu's sincere words, she nodded. "Okay. Anyway, you know that my apology is sincere. After all, this happened in my territory, so I'm responsible. As for the business, it's a matter of making more or less money. If this can't make money, just change to another project that can make money." Chiyu liked talking to her. "Yes, I have a lot of pocket money. If there are any profitable projects in the future, you can pull me in." He wanted to be on good terms with her. Chiyu had the halo of being the young master of the Chu family. Yang Yuping looked him up and down and smiled. No problem. After the sports meet, they had to start preparing for the midterm exam. Zhang Yuashan, Li Hua, and the others had too much homework to finish. They still copied what they needed to, but they were obviously much more serious. For example, they didn't have time to chat with Chiyu after class. If they weren't doing questions, they were checking their answers. Chiyu felt that life was as lonely as snow. No one played with him. He was a little tired from reading manga, so Chiyu had no choice but to read as well. But when he flipped open the book, he didn't even read 2 pages before his mood got worse. It was like the dark clouds before an afternoon thunderstorm. Why the F***ck am I reading? To get good grades, then what? He couldn't help but think of the small meeting room where Shi Yaling turned around and left in her high heels. Chiyu felt irritated. He closed the book and pushed it away. Chiyu was in a bad mood the whole day. His bad mood was very simple. He was lying on his desk in a daze. After the evening self-study session, Chiyu got up empty-handed and waited for Lucier to go back to the dormitory together. They squeezed into the elevator and walked under the streetlight. Chiyu suddenly shouted, "Lucier." Lucier lowered his head slightly and asked him, "What?" His eyebrows were exquisite. With his back facing the streetlight, the lines of his facial features seemed to be carefully drawn. Chiyu admired him for a while and said, "Let's not go back to the dormitory." "Where do you want to go?" "Where do I want to go?" Chiyu thought for a while and realized that he didn't know where to go either. He just felt very uncomfortable. The closer it was to the midterm exam, the more uncomfortable he felt. He was very anxious, or rather, conflicted, and other emotions that he couldn't distinguish and couldn't be bothered to distinguish. "I don't know either." Lucier asked him, "Do you want me to take you out to play?" "Yeah." Chiyu was too lazy to think about it. "Anything is fine." It was fine as long as it could distract him. "Then let's go." Lucier brought Chiyu back to Qingchuan Road. Chiyu's ankle wasn't seriously sprained, but he hadn't fully recovered yet. He walked slowly and didn't dare to use too much strength. The streetlights on both sides of Qingchuan Road were old. 5 out of 10 were not lit. It was either a short circuit, a hole had been smashed in the light bulb by a child, or a broken lamp post. The colorful wires were messed up. Coupled with the potholes on the ground, Chiyu didn't want to sprain his ankle again, so he walked carefully. Lucier stopped. When he stopped, Chiyu stopped as well. "What's wrong?" Lucier stood in front of Chiyu and said, "Come up, I'll carry you." Upon hearing this, Chiyu didn't have any intention of declining. Okay. He nimbly climbed onto Lucier's back and wrapped his arms around the other party's neck. Lucier's figure was thin, but he was strong and had good endurance. Chiyu felt that it was easy for the other party to carry him. Even his breathing wasn't messed up. His face rubbed against Lucier's ear. He felt that it was quite cold. Chiyu turned his head and blew hot air into Lucier's ear. "I'll warm you up." Lucier's voice was light. "Stop fooling around." "I'm not fooling around. I'm seriously blowing hot air to warm you up." Chiyu was playful. He blew hot air into Lucier's ear again. Lucier asked him to stop fooling around, but he didn't avoid him even once. In the alley, there were faint sounds of fighting. Lucier was familiar with the path, so he avoided it and walked to the other side. Chiyu was tired of playing. He felt that if he kept blowing hot air, he would look like a Samoyed dog and it would affect his image. He shut his mouth and obediently lay on Lucier's back. He stared at the overlapping shadows on the road. After staring for a while, he couldn't stand it anymore and bit Lucier's neck. He didn't use any force, nor did he really bite down. "It's itchy." Lucier asked him, "Did you miss it?" "No, it's just, my teeth itch." Chiyu felt inexplicably embarrassed. He asked, "How much longer until we reach?" "Very soon." After turning 2 corners, Lucier stopped in front of a roller shutter door. The silvery white roller shutter door was a little dirty. It was covered with a messy spray paint. The color was eye-catching. Although he couldn't understand what was painted, it was still a little beautiful. A burly man sat at the door. He was wearing a flowery coat. On his exposed wrist was a green tattoo. The door, which only allowed one person to enter, was tightly shut. No one knew what was inside. Lucier was purely relying on his face. The man took a good look at Lucier's face and sized up Chiyu. You brought your friends here to play? Yes. Are there any seats available? Yes, there are 2 empty halls. As he spoke, he got up and led Lucier and Chiyu inside. When they entered the innermost part, Chiyu was surprised. It was different from what he had guessed. It was actually a well-equipped shooting range. Moreover, after a rough look, he could tell that it was very professional. It was different from those carelessly hung signs outside. The man who led the way was a man of few words. Perhaps because Lucier was a frequent visitor, he didn't have much to say. He closed the door and left. Chiyu hopped on one foot and looked around. It was very novel. You used to come here often? Yes, I used to. Lucier opened the box and chose a gun. The man who led the way just now was the boss. He used to be a professional shooter. Later on, he partnered with a few shooting enthusiasts and opened this shop. That was the boss? Chiyu recalled that the boss's aura was indeed a little fierce. Although he said that he was a professional shooter, Chiyu didn't think so. He reeked of gunpowder. He thought about it for a while. When he turned around again, Chiyu saw Lucier standing in front of the black preparation table. He casually hung the noise-canceling headphones around his neck and then put on a pair of goggles. The goggles had a silver frame, which complemented Lucier's eyes. It was so good-looking that it almost broke the rules. Lucier stood very straight. His head was slightly lowered, and the back of his neck was slightly arched. He skillfully arranged his weapon. The black body of the gun and the cold white of his fingers were particularly eye-catching. His exquisite side profile was contrasted by the dim light in the room, making him look cold and focused. Chiyu took out his phone and raised it, ready to take a photo. Lucier didn't even raise his head and asked, "Are you taking a photo secretly?" Chiyu said confidently, "I'm not taking a photo secretly. I'm taking a photo openly." Lucier loaded the magazine and didn't continue to stop him. He said lazily, "Up to you." After Chiyu finished taking the photo and put away his phone, Lucier went over and put the headphones on Chiyu's ears. "Are you done with the preparation work?" Chiyu was excited. "Are you going to shoot a stationary target later? Or are you going to shoot a more difficult moving target? You have so little confidence in me?" Lucier's fingers were nimble. He spun the gun in his hand and asked Chiyu, "Which one do you want to see?" "I can choose," Chiyu said expectantly. "I want to see a cool one." "Okay." 2 minutes later, Lucier stood in the shooting position. From afar, something was thrown out. A bang was heard, followed by the sound of glass shattering. Chiyu was shocked. Lucier wasn't shooting a human-shaped target or a moving target. It was a beer bottle that was thrown out by a machine, F***ck, you can do this. There was no pattern to the beer bottle being thrown out. The intervals were different, and it would go up and down sometimes. But every time Lucier fired a shot, the beer bottle would shatter. Chiyu looked at the broken glass shards on the ground and then looked at Lucier, who had a cold expression on his face. He felt adrenaline pumping up his heart rate again. After a round of shooting, Lucier changed the magazine and handed the gun to Chiyu. "You do it." Chiyu was already itching to shoot. He nodded repeatedly. "Okay." He stood in the shooting position. Lucier stood behind him. Chiyu felt Lucier's hand patting his back. "Stand up straight." Then he moved his hand to his shoulder. "Level your shoulders." Chiyu stood up straight according to Lucier's instructions. He felt a little hot. When Chiyu raised the gun and straightened his arm, Lucier reached out his hand from the side and touched his finger on the trigger. "Move forward. You won't be able to pull the trigger properly." Their arms overlapped. Lucier's eyebrows were dark, and his jawline was sharp. He had the sharp edges of a teenager and an adult. His eyes looked straight ahead, but his lips were close to Chiyu's ear. He whispered, "Are you feeling hot?" Chiyu felt really hot. But the air conditioner was on in the room. He felt that this activity was a little difficult. "Lucier, my hands are weak." "Soft hands?" Lucier raised his voice and leaned closer to Chiyu. He placed his index finger over Chuyu's index finger and pulled the trigger together. Their arms overlapped, and there was no gap between them. Lucier looked straight ahead and counted down in Chuyu's ear. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bang. The bullet hit the glass bottle that had been thrown out by the machine. The broken glass shattered like crystals and scattered all over the ground. Lucier let go of his hand and took half a step to the side. Do you want to try again? Chuyu's mouth was dry. His collar was wrapped around his neck, and even breathing was difficult. He threw the gun back to Lucier. No, I don't want to play anymore. Lucier caught the gun. Really? Really, Chuyu actually wanted to play, but halfway through his sentence, he changed his tone. It's fake. After saying that, he reached out and snatched the gun from Lucier's hand. Lucier did not continue to shoot with him. He sat down on the high stool next to him. The shooting hall's decoration was simple and crude. The cement walls, metal shelves, and hanging lights gave off a cold feeling. Lucier sat on the high stool with his long legs casually propped up on the ground. He was playing with the bullets in his hand, but his eyes were fixed on Chuyu, who was shooting shot after shot. Chuyu had fun. Although he did not hit the target with a single shot, he was quite happy. There was a soft knock on the door. Lucier turned his head and saw Wei Guanglei standing at the door. Lu Gu. Lucier gestured for him to come in. I wanted to leave after shooting, but I heard from the boss that you were here, so I came to take a look. When Wei Guanglei came here to play, his first shot was taught by Lucier. There were few men who did not like cars and guns. After touching them once, they wanted to do it again. When Lucier went to school, he became a regular customer and became familiar with the boss. Wei Guanglei sat down on a stool at the side and looked at Chuyu, who was wearing headphones and goggles. He was concentrating on pulling the trigger. He clicked his tongue and said, Young master's aim is about the same as mine in the past. They're both noobs. Lucier looked at him and said, Your aim isn't that good now. Ha ha ha, I'm just practicing diligently. Wei Guanglei looked at Chuyu's back. When Zhu Zhifei told me about the landslide, I broke out in a cold sweat on the spot. Looking at young master's current condition, he should be fine, right? Yeah, I'm fine now. Lucier did not mention it at all. Until now, Chuyu would turn on all the lights every night and leave his school bag with a flashlight on his bed. He would also have nightmares in the middle of the night and send him a message when he woke up. He had already opened the door of the dormitory next door at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning several times. Young master is a good person. Don't TV dramas often say that one who survives a great disaster is destined for good fortune? Wei Guanglei's gaze turned back to Lucier. I heard Aunt Jing talking about the midterm exam coming up. She said that she wanted to make soup for Zhu Zhifei to nourish his brain. Are you guys going to have exams again? Yeah, midterm exams. Then why did you bring young master here to play at this time? He's not happy. Lucier was talking to Wei Guanglei, but his attention was still on Chuyu. He realized that Chuyu's bullets were getting more and more crooked, so he got up and stood beside Chuyu. He reached over and patted Chuyu's waist, then corrected his posture of holding the gun. Chuyu was already used to Lucier's touch, so he didn't avoid it at all. Wei Guanglei didn't pay attention at first, but his gaze inadvertently drifted over. He saw Lucier moving Chuyu's headphones away and whispering into Chuyu's ear. They were very close. When he finally hit a beer bottle, Chuyu felt satisfied. The unhappiness in his heart was like a fog, but it dissipated completely when it saw the sun. After taking off his headphones and goggles, Chuyu's face was full of excitement. When he turned around and saw Wei Guanglei, he was surprised. Sure too? When did you come? Wei Guanglei raised his hand and waved. He smiled and said, I came a long time ago. You didn't hear anything. You were too focused. Chuyu's face was full of smiles, and his light-colored eyes seemed to be glistening. Hitting beer bottles is fun. But my hands are weak. My fingers are shaking uncontrollably, and I can't use any strength. Do you want some nourishment? Wei Guanglei said, There's a new barbecue stall on the street. It's only been here for 2 days, but it's already taken a lot of business. I ate it once the day before yesterday, and it was really delicious. Do you want to eat together? Lucier didn't answer and looked at Chiyu. Chiyu couldn't wait to do more messy things to cover up all the thoughts about the exam in his mind. He nodded. Yes, yes, yes. Let's go. The barbecue stall on Qingchuan Road really only had one stall. A blue cloth shed was propped up, and white smoke rose into the air. From afar, it looked like a fire. A small wooden table and low stools were gradually set up, and the smell of charcoal and cumin filled the air. After finding a table to sit down, Chiyu looked around and realized that there were quite a lot of people. There were all kinds of people. At the next table, there was a girl wearing hot pants, black socks, and heavy makeup. Chiyu felt cold just looking at her. Wei Guanglei asked Chiyu, "Young master, what do you want to eat?" "I'll take it all." Chiyu didn't know what the stall was selling. He thought for a moment and said, "I'll take whatever Lucier eats." Wei Guanglei looked at Lucier again. "Take whatever you want to eat." "Okay, then I'll choose as I see fit." The barbecue was slow to arrive. Wei Guanglei came back with a plate of baked potato slices to fill his stomach and 2 bottles of beer in his hands. He broke open the disposable chopsticks and remembered. Oh right, yesterday, the car repair shop on the next street closed. The landlord used red paint and wrote the word "for rent" on it. Chiyu still remembered. Is it that Xianxia car repair shop? Previously, the people from the car repair shop had surrounded Lucier and beaten them up, so he remembered it very clearly. Young master, you have a good memory. Wei Guanlei nodded. I don't know where they moved to, but as long as they don't come to Qingchuan Road to steal my business. After saying that, he poured beer into the glass and asked Lucier, young master definitely won't drink it. Lu Ge, do you want one? Lucier played with the empty glass with his fingers. When he heard Wei Guanglei's question, he turned the glass upside down. Drink it yourself. He sat in a relaxed posture with his long legs propped up at the side. Half of his face seemed to be immersed in the noise and smoke, and the light soaked his eyes. It was very eye-catching. Many people around them were looking at their table. They talked about basketball and Formula One racing again. When he heard Wei Guanglei mention his mother, Lucier said, "Tell Auntie Ro that I have an exam next Thursday, so I won't be back this weekend." Okay, what about next weekend? Lucier's eyes were slightly cold, but his tone did not change. I'm not going back either. I'm going to City A. When Shiyu heard this, he guessed that Lucier was going home to attend the birthday banquet. The boss, wearing a black apron with the words "Gaoheng rapeseed oil" written on it, brought the barbecue plate over. The plate was covered with plastic film and was full of meat dishes. Wei Guanglei took a look. Boss, you must have brought the wrong plate. I didn't order grilled oysters, and this bottle of sour plum soup isn't ours either. Aren't you making a loss by serving random dishes? The boss smiled and pointed to the side with his rough and greasy fingers. Why are you so slow? The girl at the next table invited you. Chiyu tilted his head to look and realized that the boss was pointing at the girl wearing black stockings in the cold. The other party's gaze was fixed on Lucier. Wei Guanglei turned around and smiled as he muttered to Chiyu, young master, let me tell you, our Lu Ji's face and temperament often charm girls from all walks of life. He's not even an adult yet. What will happen when he's an adult? The girls who will chase after him will probably line up from where we set up the table to the entrance of your school. Chiyu knew that many girls in the school liked Lucier. However, Lucier was too cold and aloof, and girls were thin-skinned. Chiyu occasionally heard girls talking about how even if they liked Lucier, they only dared to look at him from afar and didn't even dare to send him a love letter. Chiyu turned to look at the girl again and asked Wei Guanglei, did this happen often in the past? Yes, that's right. However, our Lu Ge wasn't interested. He either returned it or didn't touch it at all. He was so cold and aloof. Chiyu didn't touch the grilled oysters and sour plum soup either. He held a bottle of soy milk and felt that his good mood earlier was like a balloon that would burst at any moment. He couldn't help but stare at Lucier. Every time Lucier moved her fingers, he began to worry that Lucier would take a bite of the oysters or drink a mouthful of the sour plum soup. Something must have gone wrong with him. After staring blankly for a while, laughter came from the next table. Chiyu looked over and saw a girl in black stockings stand up. She walked over in her thin high heels and looked straight at Lucier. Can you add me on WeChat? Her tone was ambiguous. Everyone knew what she meant. The girl was very good-looking. She had a good face, a good figure, and long legs in fishnet stockings. She had heavy makeup on and looked at Lucier with interest and amazement under her curly false eyelashes. Her friends around her started to jeer, and many people around them looked over. Chiyu gripped the glass bottle of soy milk tightly. He wanted to see Lucier's reaction, but for some reason, he didn't dare to. In the end, he lowered his eyes and stared at the corner of the stainless steel barbecue plate. He held his breath and waited for Lucier's reply. After a long time, he heard Lucier's faint reply. No. It was as if she found it troublesome and didn't want to say another word. In an instant, Chiyu fell from the sky and landed on the ground. At this moment, Lucier reached out and took the soy milk from Chiyu's hand. She filled the glass and took a sip. She didn't even look at the sour plum soup. Wei Guanglei wanted to give the girl a way out. He smiled and said, "Sister, I have WeChat too. Do you want to add me?" The girl didn't pester him and stepped down. Sure, come on. Chiyu didn't pay attention to his surroundings anymore. He couldn't help but look at Lucier. Lucier's fingers were resting on the sides of the glass. Her nails were polished. The colored lights reflected on the glass repeatedly on her fingertips. He stared at Lucier's fingers and fell into a daze. Do you want to drink it? Before Chiyu could come back to his senses, he saw Lucier bend her fingers and push the glass in front of him. He didn't want to drink soy milk, but he couldn't say no. Chiyu picked up the glass, put it to his lips, and took a sip. After drinking it, he pushed the glass back to Lucier. After leaving the barbecue stall, the three of them walked along the street. Chiyu walked slowly. Lucier cooperated with his speed, and Wei Guanglei strolled leisurely. When they passed by a convenience store, Chiyu stopped. I'm going to buy something. Wait for me. Lucier gestured to his feet. I'll go? No, I'll go by myself. After saying that, she turned and walked towards the convenience store. Lucier and Wei Guanglei stood by the side of the road. Wei Guanglei took out his lighter and cigarette. Then, he put the lighter back and took a whiff of the cigarette in his mouth. He turned his head and watched Chiyu through the glass of the convenience store. Do you know what your first reaction was when that woman asked for your contact details? Lucier put her hands in her pockets and asked, what? Your first reaction was to look at Chiyu. Wei Guanglei bit the cigarette butt and frowned. He felt that he shouldn't care, but when he looked at Lucier, he couldn't hold back his words. I still remember what you said to me when we were eating hot pot in the courtyard. Wei Guanglei and Lucier didn't know each other for long or short, but they spent all their time together. He couldn't say that he understood Lucier completely, but he still had a rough idea of what kind of person Lucier was. He used to think that Lucier saw Chiyu as prey and wanted to keep her by his side. That was why he used all kinds of methods. Later, he felt that Lucier was a little trapped. He used himself as bait to entice her. The other party took the bait, but he was also bitten. They were entangled together and couldn't be let go. He took out his unlit cigarette and said, Lu Ge, can you tell whether your feelings for Chiyu are fake or sincere? In the night wind, Lucier's eyes were cold. I can tell. Wei Guanglei looked at the convenience store. Chiyu was lining up to pay the bill. He felt that he was really king bored. Was it because there weren't enough cars in the shop to be repaired, or was the game not fun enough? It was late at night, but he still had to stand by the roadside in the cold wind and worry about his brother's gay relationship. Then do you want to discuss what you're worried about? The question that he had been unwilling to think about and had been avoiding was exposed by Wei Guanglei. What am I worried about? The wind was very cold. It blew the remaining leaves on the trees on the side of the road. The night car drove past in front of them, stirring up a cloud of dust. Lucier stood under the shadow of the tree. His figure was slim, and his eyelashes were lowered, hiding the emotions in his eyes. His voice was very soft, and it was scattered by the wind. He said, I don't dare. The weather was getting colder by the day. Many people had caught a cold due to the sudden drop in temperature and put on thick sweaters. Chiyu did not go with the flow. He still wore thin clothes. He looked good, but he was cold. Zhang Yuashan and Li Hua had expressed their admiration for Qiyu. It was such a cold day, but he was willing to go all out just to show off. After coming out of the dormitory, Qiyu could not help but tighten his grip on his collar and shrink his neck when the cold morning wind blew. Lucier stood in front of him to block the wind. Cold? Qiyu took a deep breath and the corners of his mouth curled up into a standard smile. He did not know if he was giving himself a psychological hint. No. I'm cold. If his voice did not tremble at the end, it might have been more convincing. Lucier did not persuade him to go back and change his clothes. He just walked and tried his best to stand in the wind to block Qiyu. It was early, and there were not many people walking around. Qiyu tugged at Lucier's clothes and said mysteriously, "Come, I'll show you a treasure." Lucier stopped. What treasure? Qiyu turned sideways and took out a white corner from his pocket. His eyes were filled with pride as he said, "Look." It was as if he was sharing a secret. There was excitement in his words. Lucier did not recognize it at first glance. After looking at it a few more times, he realized that it was a heating pad. I'm smart, right? I bought it at the convenience store the other day. I put 2 heating pads in my pocket. This way, I can put my hands in it and warm them up. Qiyu felt that his idea was great. It's as warm as heaven. A hint of a smile flashed across Lucier's eyes as he praised him. Yes, smart. It was the first day of the midterm exam. Many people were walking while memorizing the exam questions. They were cramming at the last minute. There was no harm in hugging more. Qiyu was assigned to the exam room in the middle section based on his results from the previous monthly exam. It was on the 2nd floor. His foot injury had not fully recovered, so he did not want to climb the stairs. He put his hands in his pockets and went to queue up obediently. Lucier followed her into the elevator and walked her all the way to the classroom. After finding his seat, Qiyu turned to Lucier and said, "You should go back soon. You can take a nap in your seat." Lucier helped Qiyu tidy up his stationery. Okay, wait for me after the exam. I'll come and pick you up. Knowing that Lucier was worried about his leg, Qiyu nodded several times. Okay. I'll wait for you. After Lucier left, Qiyu lay on his desk. He actually didn't want to come to this midterm exam. He was annoyed and conflicted, so he decided to just run away. However, there was another feeling in his heart. He felt that if he really skipped the exam, it would be like he had lost to something. Last night, he struggled for a long time and had a nightmare. He even woke up Lucier. Lucier covered his eyes with her hand and asked him to sleep in a hoarse voice. Qiyu obediently closed his eyes. In the end, he didn't even know when he fell asleep. He still entered the exam hall. Qiyu twirled his pen. He felt that men were really fickle. He didn't know anyone in the exam hall, so he simply sat in his seat in a daze without talking to anyone. There were people chatting behind him. Their words drifted into his ears intermittently. They were probably in the same class as He Zhihao. They were saying that He Zhihao probably wouldn't come to school and didn't even come for the midterm exam. He Zhihao. Qiyu directly told his brother and sister that He Zhiyuan wanted to drug him. He didn't give He Zhiyuan any chance to react and directly crushed him to the ground. At that time, Qiyu guessed that the He family would definitely not let He Zhihao come to Jianing private school again. This was expected. However, Qiyu still felt a little disappointed that he had lost a friend. The exams lasted for 2 days. After the last exam, it was Saturday the next day. Many people prepared to go home directly. Lucier went upstairs to pick up Qiyu. She saw that his side face was red from sleeping. She casually smoothed out his curled hair. Sleepy? Yeah. Qiyu yawned. The last exam was English. After he finished the paper, he looked at the time and realized that there was still half an hour left. He decided to lie down and sleep, but he didn't sleep well. After a yawn, there were traces of tears at the corners of his eyes. Qiyu rubbed his face. I was in a daze. I didn't realize where I was and I was looking for you everywhere. Lucier came to sleep with him every night. Qiyu was a little used to it. When he slept, he liked to pull Lucia's clothes to sleep. It didn't matter if it was the sleeves or the collar. Anyway, if he didn't hold anything in his hands, he would always feel empty. After another yawn, Jiyu remembered. Are you going directly to the airport later? I'll go there tomorrow morning. I'll stay in school at night. Then I'll stay in the dormitory tonight. I won't go back first. Thinking that Lucia had to go so far, Chiyu's mood fell a little. He forced himself to cheer up. No, I have to take you to the airport tomorrow. Worried that Lucia would refuse, Chiyu added, if you don't let me take you, I'll be unhappy. I'll also lose sleep at night. I'll be sad and have nightmares. Lucia didn't have any intention of refusing. Okay, you can take me. The next day, when they arrived at the airport, Lucia went to change his boarding pass. Chiyu stood there and waited. He sat on the chair and looked at Lucia's figure. He had a feeling that Lucia was a little unhappy all the way here. His expression was no different from usual, but there were a few layers of darkness between his eyebrows that couldn't be blown away. Chiyu guessed that Lucia probably didn't want to go home to City A. Looking at Lucia's expression, it was definitely not a good place to go. As for the person who claimed to be Lucia's mother, Chiyu felt that she was 100% not a good person. After Lucia changed his boarding pass, Chiyu pulled Lucia to a secluded corner to suck blood. He was about to restrain himself from biting his finger when Lucia unbuttoned his collar. You'll only be back tomorrow. Why don't you suck more blood today? Chiyu saw the cold white shoulder line exposed by the unbuttoned collar and felt an itch in his throat. He took half a step forward and approached Lucia. In order to hide it, he wrapped his arms around Lucia's neck, pressed his lips to the side of her neck, and bit down. Lucia carried a black backpack with one hand and raised the other hand to wrap around Chiyu's waist. It was a hug. In the banquet hall, Fang Weiyun was wearing a well-tailored white fringed gown. She looked dignified. She was holding a glass of champagne and chatting with a few familiar ladies. She took good care of herself. Although she wasn't as beautiful as a young girl, she had her own temperament and charm. A few days ago, my son caused some trouble again. My father is very angry. I don't know what tricks that kid used to coax his grandfather back. He even got a car. I don't know where he drove it last night. The woman who spoke looked at Fang Weiyun and said enviously, if my son, who came to collect debts, was half as sensible and filial as your Lucia, I would have fewer wrinkles. As she spoke, her gaze fell on the necklace Fang Weiyun was wearing. Your Lucia knows how to buy gifts for his mother at such a young age. Until now, I've never received a single bead from my son. Fang Weiyun touched the necklace with her finger and said softly, our Lucia has grown up. I'm also worried every day that he'll be led astray. I've seen your Shirbai a few times. He's good-looking and has a sweet tongue. He looks at his mother every day. His mother is really beautiful. You don't know how envious we are. The few of them laughed together and didn't say anything else. The conversation revolved around their children. A woman in a red mermaid dress suddenly asked, speaking of which, I haven't seen your Lucia yet. I haven't seen him in a long time. He must have grown a lot taller, right? I remember the last time I saw him, he was still in junior high school. Fang Weiyun's smile remained unchanged. He was delayed by something. He'll be here later. Not long after, Lu Xiaochu also came to look for Fang Weiyun. Why isn't Lucia here yet? Fang Weiyun looked at the time. It's past 3. He should be here soon. Lu Xiaochu didn't show any emotion on his face, but his voice was deep. We shouldn't have agreed when he made a fuss about going to school in City S. It's too far away. We can't do anything about it. Fang Weiyun held a wine glass, and there was a hint of loneliness in her eyes. But can we stop him? You know Lucia's character. She stopped talking and her tone became sadder. He knows that I'm not his biological mother. He definitely won't listen to me anymore. Weiyun, don't think like that. You raised him. Even if you're not related by blood, you definitely have family ties. He's still young and immature, so when he heard the news, he couldn't withstand the shock. Lu Xiaochu put his arm around Fang Weiyun's shoulder. I still don't know whether it was right or wrong to hide it from Lucier since he was young and not tell him who his biological mother was and let him treat you as his biological mother. Especially since Lucier has been so close to you since he was young. Xiaochu, Fang Weiyun comforted Lu Xiaochu. This was a decision we made together. If Lucier wants to blame us, we should bear the consequences. But no matter what, his surname is Lu and he's your son. In the end, we can't get rid of this layer of blood relationship. Lu Xiaochu went to greet the guests while Fang Weiyun stayed where she was. When she saw Mrs. Lin coming over with her daughter, she smiled. After greeting them, she looked at the girl in a light blue dress. This is our Wangxi, right? She's all grown up. She looks like you. She's so beautiful. Lin Wangxi greeted her politely. Lady Lin smiled. Her personality is much better than mine. I like to arrange flowers and drink tea. She takes after her father. How nice it is to take after Mr. Lin. Like father, like daughter. Lady Lin smiled happily and asked, "Where's Lucier?" Lin Wangxi blinked when she heard the name Lucier. The young man who came to pick up Chiyu at the entrance of Ulysses was called Lucier. She had a deep impression of that boy. On one hand, he was good-looking and had an outstanding temperament. On the other hand, it was rare for her to see Chiyu so dependent on someone. Although Chiyu was young, he was very clear-minded. After playing with He Jihao for so many years, no matter how He Jihao guided him, he was very clear about what to do and what not to do. He Jihao raced, crashed, and did exciting things. Chiyu had never done it before. He looked like he had a good personality, but in reality, he drew a clear line between himself and others. However, Chiyu would subconsciously rely on Lucier even when he was drunk. However, Lin Wangxi dispelled her thoughts. She felt that it might just be the same name. He Jihao had mentioned before that Lucier lived in the slums and came from a poor family. He entered Jianing private school for the sake of a scholarship. Fang Weiyun held the wine glass. Sigh, the more I look at Wangxi, the prettier she looks. She looks so much like you when you were young. Lady Lin held her handbag. Stop praising her. You're praising her to the heavens. However, Lucier is all grown up now, and you're still young. Do you want to have a daughter? Whether your daughter inherits you or your husband, she'll definitely be a beautiful little princess. Fang Weiyun's smiling expression froze for a moment. She unconsciously tightened her grip on the wine glass with her fingers, but quickly released it. She smiled and said, "Our Lucier doesn't want to hold my hand when we were young and say that mommy only wants me as her child and only likes me, okay?" Lady Lin knew that she had been rude, so she quickly changed the topic and talked about George Luana's new emerald jewelry. At this moment, the door suddenly fell silent. Then, there were layers of discussions. Lin Wangxi tilted her head and saw a young man wearing a white shirt, a black suit, and black leather shoes. He stepped in from the door. He had the thin and tall stature of a young man, like a pine tree covered in snow in the wind. He exuded a cold and indifferent aura, which was incompatible with the flowers in the banquet hall. His dark eyes reflected the fragrance of clothes, hair, and sparkling lights, but he couldn't see through them. Lin Wangxi immediately recognized him. This was the person who came to pick up Chiyu that day, Lucier. Lucier straightened the snow-white material of his sleeve and saw Fang Weiyun first. Fang Weiyun put the champagne glass on the waiter's tray and walked over with her skirt lifted. She smiled gently. "You're here? Your father was just thinking about you." Seeing that Lucier's collar was slightly crooked, Fang Weiyun reached out to help him fix it. "Look at you. Without mommy around, you always," Lucier avoided her hand. Fang Weiyun's smile froze. Lucier's thin eyelids drooped. In the depths of his dark eyes, there was hatred that had been entangled day by day. It was like the vines of a rose, covered in sharp thorns. With a slight movement, it would stir up dripping blood. Fang Weiyun withdrew her hand at the right time. Her smile didn't change as she said intimately, "Grandpa is upstairs chatting with his old friends. I'll take you to see your father first. He's been waiting for you." Lucier didn't say anything and followed behind Fang Weiyun. When Lu Xiaochu saw that Fang Weiyun had brought Lucier over, the stone hanging in his heart finally fell. He smiled and said to the middle-aged man who was chatting with him, "A grown son can't be kept at home. When a child grows up, he has his own ideas. How can he be obedient?" He patted Lu Shi's arm and gestured. "Lu Shi, do you remember who this is?" Lu Shi stretched out his hand and faced the middle-aged man opposite Lu Xiaoqiu. "Uncle Yang, long time no see. This must be Lu Shi, right? Old Lu, I think he's much more powerful than you were when you were young." The Lu family had been in business for several generations and had a deep foundation. The wealth and reputation they had accumulated were extraordinary. Lu Shi put on a hand-tailored suit and stepped into the banquet hall. It was as if he had put on a costume, and he didn't have his usual laziness or coldness. His temperament and actions would make everyone think that he was indeed the only heir of the Lu family. After the greetings, Fang Weiyun brought over a wine glass and handed it to Lu Shi. "This is juice. You must be thirsty. You're still underage and can't drink. Mommy specially poured juice for you." Lu Shi didn't take it. Lu Xiaoqiu frowned. If it weren't for the occasion and his reputation, he would have scolded her. Fang Weiyun hurriedly said a little cautiously, "You don't like it? Mommy will get you another glass." "It's okay." Lu Shi stretched out his hand and took the glass of juice. As he moved, Fang Weiyun's fingers brushed against the back of Lu Shi's hand. About 10 minutes later, Lu Shi found an excuse to leave the banquet hall and went up to the second floor. When he entered the bathroom, he locked the door and turned on the tap. He dipped his hand into the water and continuously washed the back of his hand where Fang Weiyun had touched it. So dirty, Lu Shi's jawline was tense. He lowered his head and continuously rubbed that inch of skin on the back of his hand with his left hand. It was as if he had to wash off a layer of skin to be clean. It wasn't until the back of his hand turned red and started to hurt that Lu Shi gradually stopped his mechanical movements. After turning off the tap, Lu Shi slowly wiped the water off his hand. He stood there for a while before he took out his phone and dialed a number. "Lu Shi?" "Yeah." Ji sounded a little worried as he asked, "What's wrong? Aren't you at the birthday banquet? Why are you suddenly calling me? Are you unhappy?" Lu Shi looked at the red marks on the back of his hand and smelled the incense in the air. He wanted to vomit. He called out the other party's name softly, "Chuyu." "Yes? I really want you to touch the back of my hand. They're so dirty." End of chapter 49. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video to support the channel.